Hello and welcome. We're going to talk about something today that is it's so personal and it's something every single one of us has to walk through. We're talking about difficulty, suffering. It's that part of life that can really challenge everything we believe, and it leaves us with some really tough questions. And probably the biggest question of them all is just why, right? Why do good people get sick? Why do we experience loss? Why is there so much pain? It's this deep cry of the human heart that people have been asking forever. But I have some really good news for you today. The incredible, life-changing news is that in Jesus Christ, there is a real, solid answer.
In fact, before we even get into the details, let's just put this right up front. This is the foundation for everything we're about to discuss. In Jesus, wherever you see sickness, there is healing. Wherever you see lack, there is provision. Where you see danger, there is protection. And where there is loss in Jesus, there is always restoration. This is our hope, and it is absolutely unshakable. So let's dive in.
Okay, so to really grab hold of this hope, we first have to kind of shift our perspective on what difficulty even is. Because the way the Bible talks about it is just radically different from how the world sees it. Here's the first huge truth we have to get. What you're going through is not random. It's not pointless. It is never, ever outside of God's control. Now, that doesn't make the pain less real, but it does mean that even in the midst of it, it's being held within His greater sovereign purpose. And this is where the language of the New Testament is so amazing. The Greek word that's often translated as tribulation is phlipsis. Now, that doesn't just mean random, pointless suffering. It literally means pressure. It's that feeling of being squeezed. But here's the key. It's pressure with a purpose. It's godly pressure, not pointless pain. And here's another word, dokimion, which means testing. I want you to picture a goldsmith holding a piece of gold in a blazing hot fire. The fire isn't there to destroy the gold, right? No way. It's there to burn away all the junk, all the impurities, to prove how pure and valuable that gold really is. Well, that's how God sees our faith when we walk through trials. But look, this isn't just about some abstract theological idea. The whole story of the Bible, from start to finish, is about a God who doesn't watch our pain from a distance. No, He's a God who personally steps into our story, into our mess. Let's take a quick look at how this all plays out. The story is actually beautifully simple. In the beginning, God created a perfect world. No pain, no death, no struggle. But then came the fall. Sin entered the picture, and it brought all that brokenness with it: suffering, sickness, death. And what was God's response? He didn't abandon us. Instead, God Himself came. Jesus entered our story. And Jesus was no stranger to what we go through. Isaiah, writing hundreds of years before Jesus was even born, said this in chapter 53, verse 3. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of sorrows and familiar with pain. He knew what grief felt like. He knew what rejection felt like. He gets what it means to be human in this broken world. And this is exactly what makes Him our hope. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15 tells us that Jesus can actually sympathize with us in our weaknesses because He's been there. He's walked this road. He's not some distant, detached God. He is our compassionate high priest who truly understands. So you might be thinking, okay, Jesus suffered, but how did He defeat it? And that question, my friends, gets to the absolute heart of the gospel. It's how all our pain finds its ultimate answer. It all comes down to the cross. I mean, think about it. What looked like the biggest, most horrific tragedy in human history, the most unjust moment of suffering imaginable, God took that very thing and turned it into the means of our salvation. The greatest defeat in history became our greatest victory. Have you ever read the story of Job? Here's this righteous man going through unimaginable loss and pain. And in his anguish, he cries out for what he calls a daysman. He's crying out for a mediator, someone who could stand in the middle, put one hand on him and one hand on God, and just bring them together. It was a cry of pure desperation. And here is the most glorious news. We have Him, that daysman that Job longed for. He has a name, and His name is Jesus. Because of what He did, we have a perfect mediator who stands in the gap for us and brings us right to the Father. Now, it's so important that we get this next part right. Many of us have been told that God uses sickness to teach us, and people often point to the Apostle Paul's thorn in the flesh. But when you really look at the scripture, it wasn't a sickness at all. It was a messenger of Satan sent to torment him. It was persecution from other people. And it was right there, in that place of weakness, while facing those attacks, that Paul discovered that Christ's power was made perfect in him. Why does that matter so much? Because it all comes down to the very nature of God himself. 1 John chapter 1, verse 5 could not be more clear on this. It says, God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. He is 100% pure, perfect goodness. So please let this truth sink deep into your spirit. God does not use sickness. He does not use disease. He does not use tragic accidents to train his children. Why? Because he has no darkness in him. He has no evil to give. He is pure light and pure goodness. And that's why where there is sickness, Jesus brings his healing. And where there's lack, he brings his provision. So what does all of this mean for you and for me right now, in whatever we're facing? It means our hope isn't just some wishful thinking. Our hope has a name. Our hope is a person. And the proof, the absolute guarantee, is the resurrection. The fact that Jesus walked out of that tomb is the ultimate proof that sickness, suffering, and even death itself do not get the last say. Jesus gets the last say. And that completely changes how we look at what we're going through. Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17, that whatever affliction we're facing, which feels so heavy right now, is actually light and momentary when you compare it to the eternal weight of glory that it's preparing for us. Our pain has an expiration date. Our glory in him is forever. So we come right back to where we started, but now we see it so much more clearly. This is our unshakable hope. Where there is sickness, there is healing found in the stripes of Jesus. Where there is lack, there is abundant provision from our Father. Where there is danger, there is absolute protection in Jesus. And where there has been loss, there is more than you can imagine restoration in Jesus. So please, if you take away one thing today, let it be this. Because of who Jesus is and everything he has done, your suffering, whatever it looks like, it is not the end of your story. It doesn't define you. He does. Jesus is your victory.